Hello there. How are you all going? I was just reflecting on, as you do before you take your dog for a walk, on love and relationships and how often in relationships we don't feel met and understood by our partner. And this is very normal. Not just our partner, actually. It's on all relationships. So friendships can happen in family relationships, everywhere. All relationships somehow they have these elements of great things where we overlap and we have our connection, which is, unless you're born into a family, you have to obviously get along with those. You just don't really have that choice. But with friends and with your partner, you would have had an overlap, a connection, something you shared, a feeling or hobbies, or interests, or a way of being, um, which is really lovely. And then that then leads into bonding and coming together. And at some point, you'll have reflections of things that you feel are difficult or lacking. So, which generally is a call for us to feel into what that is and an opportunity to grow, to express ourselves more fully and truly, and to see, okay, um, what is this exactly? Is it about my needs or their needs? Is something not working, or do we need to change something? Or so it's an opportunity to grow. But very often, what happens though, and especially in romantic relationships, we go loggerheads about everything or anything or some things, but very often about practical things. Um, and that's something I wanted to reflect on because I realized that for myself, I realized that you get caught up in that and you very often think it's about that thing. But in generally, it's actually not. It's if you have a neutral response to something practical, or you can get a little bit like passionate as you're doing tug of war about how to solve something, or you have both have certain practical needs that are need to be met, and you work that out, then that's normal. That's in the realm of the practical. But when you get really involved emotionally, and you have a strong emotional reaction, or they have a strong emotional reaction, it's because what's playing out underneath all that is this desire and the need to be loved. And most of us are unaware because we think it's about the actual thing. But it's always this quest for underneath that is that on some way we might not feel heard or seen or accepted or appreciated. And that's all love. And our partner can feel the same. And so little things will happen in the relationship where the other feels like and not sure if they're being loved or being met or understood, and then that sort of accumulates and create these sort of patterns between the two. It becomes sort of this tug of war of wanting to the other to prove that you are loved or to make you feel loved, and you want to you might be doing the same for them. And a lot of this is unconscious. And what I wanted to point out is, well, first of all, that dynamic actually plays. So it's a great thing to become aware of. And the other thing is that this actually stems from when we're young. So when we grow up and the times where, as we're developing ourselves and our ego and our little personality of who we are, then as we develop that sense of who am I, we also develop a sense of what is the world like, and how do I feel, about others, and what are relationships, what can I expect in a relationship, and what do I need, and a lot of this revolves also about love. How much love can I experience in myself? How much love can I experience from other people and in the world? And do people see me? Do people love me? Am I valuable? All those really, really important core realizations or thoughts, belief systems, expectations, feelings around love are developed when we were very, very little. And so then we go into the world with these feelings, and what we don't realize is that they start playing up in relationships. They become alive. So these feelings will sort of determine who we attract and who we choose for to be with in the first place, if they match sort of that frequency of how much love we expect and are comfortable with. and how much love they can expect and are comfortable with. So, and once the relationship plays, in the beginning it's not so obvious because it's like so I'm fluffing around with my scarf, that there is this opening in the beginning where everybody feels that surge of love and you have the excitement of getting to know each other. And this is also in friendships, getting to know each other and really connecting. And then after a while, that intensity ebbs away. And then there is, because that ebbing away, suddenly you notice where you don't necessarily overlap, or where you don't feel the same amount of love. And then that brings up our own experience from when we were younger, and sort of the pain around that. Because whenever you don't feel fully loved, there is a sense of separation and a sense of loneliness or a sense of inadequacy that comes up, and that's really painful for us to feel. And so when that starts coming up in relationship, very often what we automatically think it's got to be them, because they did this thing or they did that thing, and so they're responsible for what I'm feeling. And of course it could be that in the absolute level they did something that was inconsiderate or not very nice, or just not thoughtful, whether it's deliberate or not. They might have done something and it might have triggered us. Let's say you're walking, somebody trips you over, it's an actual thing. But if you're not carrying this emotional load, you would kind of just trip and go like, hey, can you not trip me? Or if they didn't do it on purpose, they just, could you watch out? Or hey, you tripped me. There's like this response which is natural. But what happens for us, there's this extra response where we get extra emotional, and that's the emotional load. That's the painfulness that we carry since we were younger. So there's actually whether it's deliberate or not, that life creates these triggers, but there is something that the triggers are good for, which is showing you where you're carrying that, and then allowing yourself to go like, okay, so there's a response to them, like, could you please not trip me up next time? But then you take yourself away and you feel into that, and you're aware of, oh my gosh, this is where I can feel this pain, and this is actually my thing and my responsibility to feel this. Because when you're little, you want your parents to love you more, and all the adults and caregivers around you, which is very natural, and it's kind of normal that they would, but we're all limited. So because we're all surrounded by limitation when we're younger, we end up storing all that inside of us, and then later on, really, we need to take that responsibility. We need to become our own inner parent, our own mother, father, and take in those feelings and feel them in our body, feel them in our emotions. That's sometimes hard, so most of us will go out distracting, or we kind of dissociate, where you get lost in thoughts and you're not even aware of your body. You don't feel yourself in that sense. You might be caught up in just thinking all the time, analyzing, in approaching everything from the mind's perspective. And that's because it's safer than being present in your body, because in the body you have to feel your emotions, and if that wasn't safe when you're young, then you won't be able to feel safe with that when you're older. So we need to build our capacity to actually be present, to feel, to breathe. Yeah, we're all breathing all the time, but to bring conscious breath into the body, especially when you feel emotions and you're heightened, and to learn how to calm down the nervous system. So you've got ways of relaxing the nervous system, and when you relax the nervous system, then you can digest all the emotions that are coming up, you can integrate them. So, and this is really important, because then you can actually start integrating that whole emotional load that we've carried since we were younger, and then you're able to see better the thoughts and the patterns that you have. You can have behavioral patterns or thought patterns that are not loving towards yourself, or that are limiting. So things like, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, nobody's ever going to listen to me. It can be all sorts of things. The world's not safe. About assumptions. Sometimes they're not even certain thoughts, they're assumptions about how much love you can expect from other people, or if you can live your dreams, or if life is survival or not. All those things are we can become aware of then. So there's that multi-layered kind of approach, and then you give yourself the love you need in the awareness and the self-responsibility to be there for yourself. And then what happens is the relationship changes. Your relationships will change, all of them, because, well, for lots of reasons, because your relationship with yourself is changing. So you might not accept certain things, and you might be able to speak up for certain things you weren't before, and you will find yourself doing things differently. And that then has a effect on the relationships that you have. So some people will go like, oh, I don't like this, and they will move away. But then you might attract different people. They go like, oh, I really like the way this person has good boundaries or self-responsibility, or they're very loving to themselves and to their friends, and I like that. So you might attract people that are actually more loving and more able to take their own responsibility. Yeah, so that's one way. So the relationships can change because the content of them changes, because you change and you do things differently, and then they can grow and change too. Or relationships can actually fall away and new ones can come. So and your experience, that's what I was going to say, that things that do maybe stay the same, your experience of them might change. So, you know, someone might trip you up and you might start laughing, and you think it's funny, and suddenly you go like, oh, like last year I would have been really upset, and now I actually think it's funny. So everything we experience in life is subjective anyway. So yeah, that's something I wanted to say. So very often, in a nutshell, if we want things from other people, we feel aggrieved, we feel people are not there for us, they're not understanding us, might be true, but at the same time, it's also a reflection of something that's happening inside you, an inner dynamic. So it's good to think about, what do I need to say to this person? What do I need to do? And at the same time, take yourself away from that situation and feel into yourself and go like, okay, so what's present? What do I feel in my body? And then bring breath to that, relax the nervous system. What do I feel in my emotions? And then bring love to that, because that relaxes the nervous system and helps you digest it. To ground your energies in, to feel yourself supported, like think of all the support you have in life, or, you know, even wearing things that are comfortable, or having a warm cup of tea or a blanket, or if you're spiritual, to think about things that bring you comfort. You know, I don't know if you connect to angels or masters, or just the light, or whatever it is, or the thought of flowers and beauty and all that sort of thing. It relaxes you. Yeah, and then feel the emotions and allow yourself to ask yourself, so what thoughts do I have that are limiting? What thoughts do I have that are unloving? What behaviors? Is there something that I needed to do differently? And don't always be too quick to rush in with an answer. Just allow space. Ask yourself the question, and then allow space and allow yourself to become aware, what's my body feeling as a response to this question? What are my emotions feeling? Or what you might have an answer or an insight just come in gently, which is sometimes more reliable than finding it with your mind, because our mind is such a great tool, but it sees everything from all different perspectives, and sometimes it can bring in too much information, and that can be confusing. So yes, if an insight feels light and clear and calm, it's usually a good sign that it's coming from a part of you that has a sense of knowingness or intuition about it. If it feels confusing and muddled and makes you anxious, then it's usually not coming from that part, and then it's good to see that it's there, but not to believe it unconditionally. Just, it might be coming from a fearful part in you that just needs more confirmation or more love or more support. Anyway, that's what I wanted to say. I hope this video wasn't too long. I realize a lot of people these days just want short little messages. I'm not very good with short little messages. I will try to do some short messages in between and short little clips, but I think it's really helpful to be able to really dive into a subject sometimes and allow it to flow through the way it wants to flow through. And yeah, takes a little bit more time. So anyway, I hope this was helpful, and hope you're all doing well, that you'll have a lovely day, and really take the time to fuel yourself and nurture yourself. You all deserve really good, loving support from yourself and from your environment. So, alright, chat more soon. See ya.